Hello, welcome to Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast. I am your host, Gary Howard. This is the Murder Edition, which I do. I say this all the time. I do try to put these out on Monday, but my schedule doesn't help me at all. And plus, getting a cold not too long ago. What I've been trying to do is on these murder episodes, I'm going to stop calling them Monday episodes. I'm going to call them murder episodes. Is start from 1976 on since they reinstated the death sentence in the United States and in order how they executed them. And today, right now, there's no truck stops in this one. I'm actually at my company at Prima Express at Joliet, Illinois, which might be temporary. I don't know. I haven't really made up my mind about this company yet. When I started driving a truck, I want to do all 48 states. And lately, I've just been going to Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Virginia, and that's it. And in a circle. I mean, yeah, I went to New Hampshire, but I still had to drive through Pennsylvania. Not just saying they're bad states; they are very nice. But when you want to travel all 48, this is I don't know. This is more of a dedicated. I mean, I make good money and it's a lot of dropping hooks. But if you want to travel, this is not. So if you want to make money and don't care where you go, this is the perfect company. But if you do care where you go and want to be like Forrest Gump, life is a box of chocolate. You don't know where you're going to get. I say life is like truck driving. You never know where the road's going to lead you. But with this company, you do. So if this is what you want, then yeah, perfect company for you. But here we go. So I'm here, not at a truck stop. Now there will be another truck stop with a truck stop coming up Wednesday, and then I'm gonna start with the missing and unsolved cases. Still, I have an interesting one coming up that I want to do. That's right outside of Delphi. I've heard about the Delphi when I drove by there and saw it. I saw another case, and I was like, "Why is that not?" And it really quickly occurred to me that these were black girls, so maybe that had a lot to do with why they're not up front in everybody's faces like the Delphi girls were, which needs to be solved just as much. But nothing's been said about this. This happened before the Delphi case. It's like 3 months. But enough of that. As always, please rate and review anywhere where you listen to podcasts. iTunes is the place to is mainly so really people listen. See, you can track what you're doing on iTunes. But anywhere, also, if you want to support me, maybe I could quit truck driving and do this full time so you can constantly get episodes from me. Go ahead and go to Patreon/truckstopmurder, patreon.com/truckstopmurder, and you can help me up. I'm going to start putting bonus episodes out. I have been putting early releases out, but I only have one Patreon right there on it right now, and it's actually my wife, Full Metal Jackalope. She's the only one who gets them. But there you go, or PayPal. I'll give that truckstopmurder@gmail.com. But enough of this. If for the few people who said they stuck around, listen to the story, well, here we go. We're talking about Charles Brooks Jr., born September 1st, 1942. He was executed. Of course, there's no, we already know he's going to get executed. He got executed September 7th, 1982 at 12:16 a.m. by lethal injection in Texas. This is the first lethal injection this is the first lethal injection period. Before this, it was electric chair hanging or fire squad. This method was the first person ever got executed by lethal injection, and in Texas, he was the second murderer executed in the U.S. in 1982. Sixth murderer executed since 1976, which I've covered all past five. First murderer executed in Texas in 1982, and first murder executed in Texas since 1976. So, without further ado, let's talk more about the storyline. Let's see. Brooks was previously convicted in the United States in Louisiana on September 27, 1962, and was sentenced to 3 years for the offense of simple burglary in DeSoto Parish, Louisiana. He was paroled in 1963, and his parole was revoked in 1965. Brooks also pled guilty in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas in 1968 on 3 counts of illegal possession of firearms. Brooks was also convicted in Walker County, Texas, of theft over $50 and burglary, and he was discharged in Leavenworth, he was. This is when he was discharged in 1968 from the Texas Department of Corrections Department number 214019, if you want to know, and was discharged from Leavenworth in 1975. 1 year out of getting prison on. So this is when it happened on 1976 on December 14th, 1976. Charles Brooke was. Let's talk a little bit about Charles Brooke first before we go into the crime. Charlie Brooks was raised in a well-off Fort Worth family, attended I.M. Terrell High School, where he played football. He had been in prison, like I said before, serving time in the United States Penitentiary Leavenworth for illegal firearms possession. That's where he was at. So, but yeah, so he wasn't, normal guy in the 70s. Did some time in jail here and there. Probably was an opportunity for him, maybe, 'cause black guy in the 70s. Who knows? I'm not saying there wasn't, but he did spend a lot of time in and out of prison. So the morning of December 14th, 1976, let's talk about that. Marlene Smith, a admitted prostitute, thief, and heroin addict, traded sexual services for the use of a car from a used car dealer. Now, I don't know what she did. I didn't find no if she gave him a blowjob or what she did, but she did some for him at the dealer to obtain his car. She then picked up Woody Lauders and Charlie at a liquor store on Rosedale Avenue. Marlene and Woody lived together in room 15 at New Lincoln Motel in Tarrant, Tarrant County. Marlene had been acquainted with Charlie for 2 weeks, and that Charlie had occasionally stayed with him at the motel. The three drove back to the motel where Marlene and Woody used heroin. The three then drove to the home of Charlie's mother where they drank. The trio left, heading for the south side of Fort Worth that Marlene could go shoplifting. The two men was, shoplifting with her, but there's no really, as they were driving on East Lancaster Street, the car, there's no sign if they said if they were taking her to go shoplifting, but there's no mention if they were shoplifting with her, but just driving her there, probably get some more drugs. So as they were driving on East Lancaster Street, the car vapor locked and they pushed it into a service station. They were unable to get the car started, and according to Marlene, Charlie left the two and walked to a nearby used car lot to get a car to test drive. So there's quotations over there. So pretty much just a take for whatever they want to do. So that the three would have transportation to the south side. An employee of the used car lot talked to him when he walked into the lot and asked to test drive a car. He was wearing a tan top coat at the time. Company policy required at the store that customers who walked to the lot was asked to drive because there's no car to leave behind. Of course, if they walked up to the lot, they had to have someone for a test drive. They had to be accompanied. Why can't I talk? They have to have an employee with them. So one mechanic, David Gregory, was told to ride along with them. They're just supposed to ride around the block. The records reflect that David was a paint repairman who sometimes assisted as a mechanic and also answered record calls. So the two drove to a location where Marlene and Woody was waiting in the vapor lock car. Woody got into the car with Charlie, putting David in the trunk. So they grabbed him and snatched him right away in the trunk. I can imagine he was scared to death. They drove off with leaving Marlene with the broken down car. So she's no longer in the picture. The duo, they drove to the motel at 6 p.m. They were in the car at the time when Charlie released David from the trunk of the car and brought him to room 17 of the motel. Then Woody came to the office of the motel and told the manager's wife, Emma Spears, that they had. This is what baffled me. I don't know why they felt the need to do this, but they did. Maybe they're just high on drugs and they're afraid that if they didn't come tell the hotel management that this was going on, they would bother them. And this is their way to ensure that they didn't get interrupted in any way. But either way, I'd like to hear your opinions for a few people, some people, whoever. If you're listening to this, go to Truck Stop Murder, the Facebook page, and let me know why you think these people would just out of the blue, unsolicited, go and ask the manager, tell the manager what they're going to do. But yeah, they told Emma Spears that they had a man tied up and we were going to have to kill him. Charlie also came to the window of the motel office, pointed a large revolver at her head, and told her You're ignorant. If you say anything, I'll blow you and your daughter's brains out. He then walked away from the motel, returned to room 17. Now, keep in mind, they also have room 15. They'll come up later. There were two rooms, either they had two rooms 15, or that was empty at the time. Well, as soon as they went back, shots were heard soon thereafter. During the time, a woman who was delivering cleaning to the motel out. He then walked from the hood, returned to room 17. Let me see, I got mixed up in my notes. Cleaning the motel, talked to Emma. When she left the motel, she noticed the license number on the car in which the Charlie and Woody had arrived in. After leaving the premises, she noticed the police. After hearing the shots, Emma also noticed the police and her husband, the manager of the motel. The two were seen leaving the motel by the back entrance, so they were escaping out. They shot the guy. Well, at the point we don't know who shot at this moment, but they heard gunfire, and then the woman delivering cleaning products talked to the manager, delivered them, and they heard the fire. They got the license plate of the car and saw him left. They showed up. Of course, they already said what they had the guy. So Fort Worth police officers arrived at 6:24 p.m. They were advised that shots had been fired. The officers began checking the rooms for signs of foul play. They began their checking at room 13. Room 15 was unlocked and empty, so room 16 and 17 was locked. When 17 was unlocked by the manager, David's body was found bound and gagged with adhesive tape and shot in the head. So Phil Watson, 11 p.m., met Charlie and Woody. Back to them guys. Met them at 11 p.m. Met Charlie and Woody at the flea. By the way, they also found a lot of drug paraphernalia in room 15. I guess that's where they were doing drugs, but so they wouldn't do it in their own room. And they did find that when it was unlocked. So let's talk about Woody and Charlie and Woody. Phil Watson, another person introduced into the scene. At 11 p.m., met Charlie and Woody at the Flamingo Club in South Fort Worth. Woody asked Watson to drive them back to the New Lincoln Motel. When they arrived, the manager told them to leave. When they were passed by two police cars, they stated that the applicant stated that they had been a killing. All three were arrested later on at Watson's home. So they drove by the police officers and said there's been a killing there and just took off. So they went to Watson's home, and that's where they were arrested for this. Of course, there was really they had room 17 was where they rented the two. They told the manager what they were going to do. Also, other evidence. We'll get to it. But yeah, good. Charlie contends at the trial that so they arrested him. They're going to go for the murder case. Charlie contends that the trial erred and admit into evidence and certain items seized by the police and resulted in a illegal search of room 15 of the New Lincoln Motel. There's no, but the owner of the owner of the hotel allowed, or manager, I don't know about the owner, the management allowed them to go in. So I guess they didn't really need probable cause or a search warrant. The records reflect that after finding that David's body in room 17 of the motel, the police returned to room 15 and recovered state exhibits number 16, two spools of currency adhesive tape dispenser, the tape that was around David, and state's exhibit 23, three hypodermic syringes. That's the drugs they're using. State exhibit 16 was admitted without objection, and state's exhibit 23 was admitted over objection that it constituted evidence of extraneous offense. Extraneous. So it really had nothing to do with the actual murder itself, but probably they wanted to show the jury what kind of people these were, I believe. But yeah, the indictment charged that Brooke then and there initially and knowingly caused the death of an individual, David Gregory, by shooting him with a firearm, and that said Charlie Brooks Jr. that then they intentionally caused the death of said Gregory in the cause of committing the offense of kidnapping. By then, they initially and knowingly abducted Gregory. So they put the murder along with the kidnapping, and of course, in Texas, that is death penalty. So Brooks, in the past, Brooke Beck, I already told you about the previous conviction, almost 5 years. He's been pretty much in jail. But yeah, after 5 years after this happened, Woody Launders, the other guy, the guy that was with him, like I said, the other woman, the drug addict, the prostitute, she was no longer in the view. She was just with him at the beginning of the story. But it was Charles and Woody. So he quickly admitted to what he did. He testified against Charles. He said he had nothing to do with it. It was all Charlie. So he had been indicted and convicted for the same offense, but because of his helping him out, was convicted and had been reversed on appeal. Made a plea. He first was charged with the same things. Charged. They were going capital murder after both of them, but since he testified against Charlie and he made a plea agreement with the state for non-capital murder if he testified against Charlie and got sentenced to 40 years in prison. I'm sorry for y'all. This sounds a mess. I made these notes a while back ago, and I'm trying to put something out today. So yeah. So they went after the death penalty first degree because Texas don't mess around. I don't know if you're familiar with Texas. Any kind of murder that has any kind of aggravated circumstances of be rape, robbery, kidnapping, or anything. And of course, they have Woody testifying against them. Has witnesses saying that, but that will come later on. That they don't really know who actually did the killing, but they're gonna go with Woody's statement. So he's got 40 years, but they're still going after the death penalty for Charlie. Which, with all the evidence, everything like that, they told him guilty, and he got the death penalty. Of course, since he's on the show, they will be executing him. So, on his appeals, the Supreme Court of the United States rejected 6-3, pension and grant a stay execution. By the way, his appeals that he had, first he said was the no search warrant in 15, that all that stuff should not be submitted into court. Also, one of the juries said when they questioned him, trying to figure out who's going to be on a jury panel, had the same situation that in his life that one of his friends, or that was in the same situation where he got killed by a black guy, like a manager, everything like that, and they should have got excluded from the jury. But when they're doing this, you have strikes against you. The defense has strikes and the prosecution has strikes. So if you only have like three, so if you do not want that jury on the panel, you can use one of your strikes. But at the time of this juror, Charlie, the defense did have some strikes, so they could use it, but they didn't. So they had that. They said it was a biased jury because they said the same thing happened to him, and he probably felt that how should I say this? He was guilty before the trial even started because same thing happened to him. But all that was rejected, and the stay of execution was going on. Not stay of execution, but yeah, the Supreme Court rejected 6-3 petition for execution. He filed for habeas corpus, that failed. Everything failed. So on December 7th, 1982, his last meal consisted of, now it says it's T-bone, but I got a book with Texas last meals, and they give you what they have. So if you ever T-bone, ribeye, or something like that, you're getting chopsteak. And I heard that sometimes they might take the chopsteak and form it like a T-bone steak, but you're not getting T-bone steak, you're not getting filet mignon, you're getting chopsteak. But his last meal was T-bone steak, French fries, ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, biscuits, peach cobbler, and iced tea. Brooks was rolled to the death chamber in Huntsville unit in Huntsville, Texas, which is also the Walls unit. There he made his final statement. At the time, while he was in jail, so 76, that happened. So 6 years later, he was executed. He had converted over to Islam during prison, and I'm going to try to say his last statement. He was executed despite doubt. Here's what I was talking about. Charlie Brooks was executed December despite serious doubts from his personal involvement of the murder of which he was convicted. In fact, the prosecutor even pleaded that his death sentence is to be commuted, but because no one knew whether he or his co-defendant, who was given a prison sentence in return for his testimony at trial, actually committed the murder. I feel because the death sentence just came back on, they really wanted, and they got this new type of execution. Now, this is just me talking. I could be totally talking on my asshole right now, but I believe since they started this, and they were really excited about trying this lethal injection out. So even if the prosecutor said maybe this wasn't him, this DA states everything. Said, nope, we already got it set up. Let's roll with it. So let's talk about his last statement. I'm going to try to state him because, like I said, he resorted to Islam. His last statement said, I, at this very moment, has absolutely no fear of what happens to this body. My fear is for Allah, God only, who has, at the moment, the only power to determine if I shall live or die. As a devout Muslim, I am taught to believe that this material life is only the express purpose of preparing oneself for the real life that is to come. Since becoming Muslim, I have tried to live as Allah wanted me to live. Spoken, yes, I do. I love you. Then I said that. I'm not even going. Yeah, I'm not going to do it because I'll sound like a fucking. I already sound like a fucking idiot as it is on some of these episodes trying to talk. But yeah, he got executed on December 7th, 1992. I don't know where he's at, but I will. Let's see. But if you do want to know where David Preston, if you want to pay your respects to him, let's talk about more about David Preston Gregory. He was the person he murdered. He was born March 29th, 1950 in Dallas, Texas. Of course, his death was December 14th, 1976. He was 26 years old. He died right there. He is in Laurel Land Memorial Park in Dallas, Texas. He's in Section D, Lot 106, Space 3. So if you want to go and pay your respects to him, go. It'd be awesome for you to do. Now, by the way, if you decide I want to look up Charlie Brooks, do not get Charlie Brooks. Charlie Brooks is a black man who got executed in '82. Now, there is another Charlie Brooks. This is not him. This is a woman, actually. Emma Brooks is a British actress known for her role as Ginny Butcher in the BBC One soap opera EastEnders. So, don't be looking at her and calling her a cunt. Why did you kill that guy? That's not her. In fact, she was born in '81. So this crime happened 5 years before she was born. So there you go. There goes David Preston. Sorry, it's kind of choppy. I'm going to have to really get practice back into this. Hopefully, I'll start getting on the regular on this. Just sometimes my schedule prevents me from doing so. It's hard to work 14-hour shift and try to get to recording and research. And research is kind of rough. That's why it's kind of rough on this one. I got all the notes together, but they're kind of choppy. I really didn't have enough time. Well, I do have to really fine tune them. I need more time. That's why I'm trying to. Maybe one day I'll get out of truck driving and be able to do this full time. I've already traveled all 48 states. I've been to thousands of truck stops. So I have plenty to talk to. The only problem is I just don't have the time. But I'm a stubborn bastard and I don't want to quit this. Plus my wife Desra likes these. I asked her how she likes them. She enjoys them. So Desra, this is for you. Why don't quit? Plus airborne. Airborne don't quit. All right, if you liked what to hear, like the story, and you were able to stick to the end, with my mouth, please rate, review anywhere you. Please don't. If you didn't like it, just don't review. But if you did like it, rate, review on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Always, you could support me, help me be able to become full-time podcaster at Patreon at TRUCKSTOPMURDER. That's Patreon for patreon.com/TRUCKSTOPMURDER. I'm going to start putting out bonus episodes here pretty soon. It's always early release. Now I'm going to drop this one right away since it's Monday. Also, if you don't want to be active every month, you can always PayPal me money at trucks.murder@gmail.com. All right, everybody. And as I always say, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. I'm out of here.